All right, here's some possible ideas. Not looking for you to copy necessarily, but just giving you some inspiration of things you could potentially do. So I'm going to start out very simple with just shapes. So what I've done is I've duplicated the logo, and it's a very plain logo right now. And I'm just experimenting with shapes. So we're using the tools here. You've got your rectangle tool. You've got your ellipse tool. Remember, on any of these, when you hold down the shift key, it will keep it perfectly proportional, but sometimes you may not need it to be proportional. Maybe you're going to do an ellipse that surrounds it this way, or maybe it's going to be more vertical. Totally up to you. One of the other tricks here when you're using the polygon tool is when you start to drag, as you're dragging, if you press your up arrow or down arrow, it will change the number of sides. So for example, right here, pressing down, so the least number of sides it's going to give me is 3, because 2 doesn't make a shape. You can experiment with any of these kinds of shapes to be able to work with your logo. So for example, I took a circle, a square, I took a rounded rectangle, and with the rounded rectangle, you've got these live corners, so I can drag those in, or if I want to click on just one of them, see how that's got a dark color on it, those don't, I can grab just a single side. So I can kind of experiment with these. I can also do the same kind of thing with any kind of corner that's here if I wanted to roll those in. So that's another way you could experiment with these. So again, I'm just showing you a couple basics of what you could possibly do. And then I'll show you some stuff with strokes in a different one. So with these, circle, rectangle, rounded rectangle, triangle. Ooh, nothing super fancy, but it does help to kind of give it a little bit of character. Then I would want to play around with strokes. So let me show you a couple things you could possibly do with strokes. So let me grab let's grab this one for right now. I'm going to duplicate this and come down here, and I'm going to look at just.
I don't get it.
Oh,
but I can check the web
you be
form.
quiet, Siri. Nobody asked you. All right. So I'm going to duplicate a couple of these just so you can see them next to each other. All right. So with this, in your stroke panel, right here where it's got the little dotted lines, if you click on it, it'll bring out a large amount of information. And you've got several different things that are set up. I've got corners, but more importantly, this align. This will line stuff up to the outside. So as I create a bigger stroke, it'll go outside of the circle instead of going inside. Or you can do just having it go inside or having it split the difference. So that's one thing. So that could be something to be able to increase the stroke that's here. Let me grab a copy of this one. I'll toss this one down here. So see, just that alone helps to kind of kick that off a little bit. Now, another thing you can experiment with, in fact, I'm just going to delete those. Duplicate that guy. And I'm going to come in here on the stroke, but this time I'm going to go in and I'm going to add a second stroke on here. So what I can do is instead of going to the stroke panel right here, what I want to do instead is I want to go to the appearance panel. If you don't see it on yours, you can always go to Window, Appearance, and it'll show up. What this is going to let me do is it's going to let me stack multiple strokes on here. So right now, I'm going to click on the existing stroke I have. I'm going to do Add. And now I'm going to change this one so that it's on the inside instead of the outside. I'm going to change this to a gray. And I'm going to make it a little smaller. Ooh, fancy. Look at that. It looks like 2 circles, but it's actually 1 circle. Then with something like that, I could play around with starting to enhance the actual logo itself. So I'm going to put a stroke on the group of items that I have there. Going to click on my stroke. Going to put it on the outside. Going to make it a little bit bigger. Doesn't really look like it's doing a huge amount until I make this a little bit bigger. And I want to put this on the top. Bring that to the front. Ooh. Yeah, that ooh noise is going to get annoying, isn't it? But I can already tell I don't really like some of the stuff that's happening here. Like I don't like that I've got a stroke on this one. There's no real need to have that, so I'll probably take the stroke off. And then I may have to play around with the arrangement and stuff. So just another thing to kind of experiment with, but I'm not going to edit myself at this point. So that is one way you could play around with the stroke. Another way would be, get over there, grab this one, duplicate it. I'm gonna make my artboard longer. All right, here we go. Is you can also play around with the type of stroke that's on here. So with the stroke, there's several that are set up. So again, you've got your, do you want it on the inside, outside, or splitting the difference? So I just color that in. And then I can change it to a dashed line. Right here, this is going to change, whatever number you put in here is how big or how small the thing's going to be. So if I make this a higher number, there's more of a gap, or for the dash size. But I can even play around with putting other numbers in here. And see, I just went 25, and then it did a little piece there. So that's something else you could play around with. If you decide, nope, don't want the dashed line, what I'd like instead is I want to play around with other types of profiles that can be used. So right up here across the top, there's some pre-made brushes. And it's really hard to tell when it's super small. But let me change this one here. You've got profiles, which isn't really doing much on this because the stroke is so big. Go duplicate this one again. See, that one's really not that great with the square. Ooh, it got a little thinner there. Ooh, fancy. Not exactly what I'm looking for on that. There are some pre-made brushes. These are horrible. Look at that. It's like, ooh, it did something neat. Oh, God, that's a horrible brush. But there are other brushes that are inside of here. So if you click on this one, you can come right down here to this little library. It's these books. And you can choose different pieces. You can find different ones that are in here. They've got, ooh, hand-drawn brushes. Let's see what that one looks like. Oh, maybe not. But you may be able to find something. Oh, gosh, what is that? That is not good at all. But there are others. So I'm going to click in here, and I'm going to try, ooh, decorative. Decorative banners and seals. Let's check those bad boys out. Ah, there it is. Yeah, no, we don't want any of those. Let's go here with decorative, and let's try elegant curls and floral brushes. Okay, those are actually a little bit better. Probably not exact, but oh, that's interesting. Now you might end up finding you like that portion of it, but you don't like what happened across the entire thing. Hey, that's kind of interesting. Wasn't expecting that. Don't like the look of that. Some of these work better with straight lines. So that's another thing you can do if you don't want to put it across a shape. You could do something like that. And then the other cool part is if you don't like the edge of this, but you like this piece or any of these where you like part of it, but you don't like the entire thing, you can come over to here to where it says expand shape, right over here in the quick actions. What this does is that turns it into a line that you're going to then be able to go to edit, or actually object and expand appearance. This now, just like doing create outlines of a font, will let you go in and manipulate any individual point that you want, or you can actually go in with your eraser and go bloop, don't want that. And now you've got this little shape that would have taken a really long time to draw and set up, and you don't need to. So some of these brushes are great on just straight lines. Some of the brushes will work great on a stroke. And then another last thing, and I'm done. Right here on the stroke. Actually, let's go back over here. I'm going to go ahead and put just a basic. See how I'm making this thicker? When it's tapering from this little thin point to thick back to thin, you can kind of see it's doing something. May not be doing exactly what you want, but it's doing something. What you can then do is you can use this with Profiler at any point and be able to thicken or thin any area. Not liking the look of that, but just showing you some options. So experiment a bit more, because it will definitely, even with it just being straight grayscale, sometimes manipulating and playing around with these different shapes might help. The strokes might help. And then maybe doing something playing around with adding extra flourishes may end up helping. So not a requirement that it has to be done in that way, but these are ways to continually experiment with your logos to slowly start refining them a little bit more.